Welcome everyone, my name is Trevor and I'm CompNow's Microsoft Surface Specialist. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for today's Power Up Surface Modern workshop. I'm joined by our one and only Polley, our Engineering Manager from Queensland, who will later give us a fantastic demonstration and deeper dive into modern deployments with Intune. Okay, let's jump into it. For those who don't already know us, CompNow is 100% Australian-owned company. We are a Microsoft Gold partner and we're really proud of how we are able to service our Surface clients. Alongside being a Gold Microsoft partner, we are the first independent reseller to become a Microsoft Surface authorised service provider, which allows us to provide on-site repairs of Microsoft Surface devices. One of the key items I wanted to cover today was our Power Up program. Power Up enables your school or business to apply for funding from Microsoft to support additional services and assist with your Surface fleet integration. This funding can be applied to training, readiness reviews, pilot programs, or customised application development. This provides a great opportunity for your organisation to take advantage of a large range of features that Surface has to offer. The way we work has changed for good. The rapid transformation we are in has added urgency to companies' efforts around employee wellbeing, cloud-based deployment and flexibility. I know that I really like the flexibility of hybrid working, and as a business, we use Teams as one of our primary means of peer-to-peer communication. Later, Aaron will speak about how, in this current environment, CompNow has been rolling out and managing devices remotely without sacrificing security. To kick things off, we wanted to give you a rundown of what's new from Surface. We're also celebrating 10 years of Microsoft Surface. This is a fantastic milestone and has been a real game changer for the personal device market for the last decade. Let's start with the Surface Pro 9. I'm excited to introduce Microsoft's latest, most powerful Pro, which covers a wide range of employee needs from the home office to the edge. We have a great hands-on video on the Pro 9 and Pro 9 with 5G. Check it out for more details. Surface Pro started the two-in-one category and continues to lead the field. Microsoft Surface Pro 9 enables your employees to achieve more with the tablet that can truly replace the laptop and even create a full desktop workstation. And when employees are working remotely, security and data protection are top priorities. With Surface Pro 9, you now have more options to select the right Pro for your organisation. From CAD files to Excel spreadsheets, your employees get pro-level performance with 12th gen Intel Core processors. This device is great for your finance professionals, sales reps, mobile engineers and caseworkers. For employees on the go who need instant access, quick multitasking and longer battery life, Surface Pro 9 with 5G is a great option, perfect in the hands of on-the-go executives, highly mobile engineers or technicians. Surface Laptop 5 is Microsoft's answer to the emerging needs we're seeing in the workplace. It's all about style, speed and performance. Users that need high-powered apps and intensive multitasking demand high-performance devices. Think of people who do intensive calculations or computing, or employees who leverage apps that eat up system resources. They can't worry about their device's ability to keep up, and all of that needs to come into play in any workspace at home or the office. We also have a video on the Laptop 5 with Caroline, which is also worth checking out. Reimagine the ways you get it done with the most powerful Surface laptop. Surface Laptop Studio offers incredible performance and delivers the highest graphics horsepower of any Surface laptop. Surface Laptop Studio enables seamless transition from best-in-class laptop to a natural angle for docking to a full performance canvas. As part of our Microsoft Surface series, we also have a hands-on video for the Laptop Studio where we show you a variety of scenarios that this new form factor excels in. We also have the Surface Hub 2S. This has been a real game changer for so many organisations. We have a great video case study available on its use at Oxley Christian College, where they have it in every classroom throughout their junior and middle schools. Finally, one of the reasons we love Surface is its deployment capabilities with Intune. We know that it is the easiest to roll out, and in addition to this, CompNow can repair Surface devices being a Microsoft Surface authorised service provider. All of this removes barriers and gets devices into the hands of your people quicker, more securely, and with fewer headaches for IT. Now we'll hand over to Aaron, who will go a little deeper into modern deployment and management.
Thanks, Trevor. Let's have a chat around modern endpoint management. So if you're like me and have some experience out there managing devices, you know that it's challenging sometimes. It can be quite tedious to go through and manage different devices, trying to change settings across the fleet inside of a school or a workplace. And so we really want to have a look at these modern solutions and modern tools that help kind of do this at scale and do it much more smarter and much efficiently. So Microsoft Endpoint Manager is a collection of those tools. Having a look at some more traditional things like Configuration Manager, formerly known as SCCM, and Microsoft Intune, which is a kind of more modern, more forward-thinking cloud platform to manage devices, their apps and configurations, and really push and kind of get a desired state at scale. This collection of tools and some others is really, really powerful, all inside of Microsoft's cloud and Azure, and really, really unlocks potential to managing our devices. If we have a look, I guess, at the structure, we have that device management side that we just talked about, as well as Azure Active Directory, really underpinning the identity and compliance and security elements of understanding who and what your organization is interacting with. Powered with the configurations and apps that can be pushed from Microsoft Intune and Configuration Manager, we start to tell this story of how devices can be of a person and of a certain state that we can trust. Really, really important as we move into the intersection of all these elements. Inside of this platform, we have a lot of reporting and analytics that can help us see, as I said, not only what we do to devices, but also what users do and the other elements that affect this state. So really, really rich analytics around understanding the scoring, if you like, of how we want these devices to be configured and the state for them to be in. Again, all around trust, being able to understand that we have a good and equitable relationship between our devices and the information that is important to our organization. One of the unique things about the Surface family and its relationship with Intune is around DFCI. So be able to manage that low-level firmware BIOS UEFI level of software on the physical device that traditionally, with a lot of different hardware vendors, we'd be used to BIOS passwords, for example. This kind of removes that. And I know for myself, managing fleets of devices, I would see challenges around different passwords or making that password, that single password, for example, across lots of devices safe. Because the reality is one key to unlock many doors is not that safe, right? So it's really cool that we get the ability to, from the cloud, in a secure and unique way for each device, manage these settings and lock down different things. So to show you what this looks like, let's jump into a demo and have a look. So as you can see here inside of this Endpoint Manager tenant that I have here, we can go through and have a look at the different areas that we manage, devices, applications, etc. Starting with the devices, we can go through and see by platform, the Windows devices that we have here and the settings that we can do to manage them. So talking around configurations and configuration profiles, we can see here that inside of the platform, I can very easily create a profile to set some settings. We've got different templates here. So for example, if I go to Windows 10 and later, and I look at the templates section, I can see there's lots of different kind of presets of settings that I can choose to configure and push out to my devices. As we said before, we're going to have a look at DFCI. So I click that, click on Create, and then what I have here is a place to punch in a name. Hit Next. And then I could choose all the different settings that I can fold out here and have a look at. So I could see the ability to manage things like, can the user manage or interact with these settings or not? I can change some configuration settings around some of the hardware resourcing and how that is accessed. I can do things like the camera, disabling that at the lowest level, at the software level, which for high security environments can be really critical. Microphones, speakers, and other physical input devices, I can manage that as well. One of the other ones here that could be important is managing how a device can be turned on, can be booted from. So we can look at preventing or allowing network-based adapters, like a Pixie boot, for example, or booting from a USB drive. I know, for example, in K-12 environments I've seen before where if crafty students want to be able to modify the operating system, this is a great way to say prevent that. So whatever my settings are that I choose to do, I can enable those here, click Next, and apply it to groups inside of the system. So for my purpose, I'm going to add it to a particular group that I've prepared before. And then click Next. We can have some other conditional rules, which I won't do at this time. And at the end, I get really simple description summary of what I'm pushing out, who I'm pushing it to. And that's it. We get to see, as those devices check in, how successful that is. Okay, we've had a look at the kind of high-level architecture of the cloud platform and how it manages devices and looks at user identity. We've had a look at a physical device security feature of the DFCI and push that out. Now let's have a look at what zero-touch deployment means with Windows Autopilot. So let's first start with a real customer story. With everything in the cloud, getting a device up and running takes about 10 minutes. It used to take up to 24 hours and involve restoring from a full backup. So this is a very common story, right? We would see that traditional model of going through and building a custom image and that golden master, for example, right? You take a device, you'd put the settings, you'd put the drivers, you'd put the apps, you'd put the policies, the different things on that you want that to be a state to replicate across. And what would you do? You'd stamp that and you'd deploy that out to new devices and you'd stamp. You'd keep stamping it out into new devices via USB stick or Pixie boot process, whatever that may be, right? That's your traditional model. And what we saw that testimonial there is, this new process is actually much, much quicker. Because what we have inside of a modern management and deployment scenario with Autopilot is we still have to spend that time up front, I guess, configuring those settings in a different way. So rather than creating that one kind of golden master computer or image, we now do that inside of the cloud, inside of Intune. And we put all those settings, we upload all those settings, we configure all those policies, we upload all those applications. And then what we do now is we actually deploy it out without having to touch devices. So rather than having to boot up, for example, that device via a network cable and stamp that image down, we just tell that device to phone home, to talk to Microsoft and get the settings that it needs. And so, hey, with all this free time, maybe we play some Xbox. You get the idea. It basically means we can stop spending all of our effort on just deploying devices and start shifting that focus and time and energy to things that matter much more. So if we look at what the life cycle of this device, right, birth to grave, what does this look like for a Surface device with Autopilot? So firstly, you engage an organization such as CompNow to help you build out that solution. We help you configure the Intune tenant, configure the policies, the applications, maybe even some non-technical, just process policy and governance, whatever that needs to look like to support your organization. Beyond that, then we get to be able to actually supply and ship that device, for example, directly to your end user. In a post-pandemic world, we have lots of people that work from home and even on board before they even step into an office. This workflow enables that by sending it straight to their home, for example. What we see then is because we've gone through and spent all the effort in the cloud of configuring those devices and settings and policies and applications, we now get this fantastic hands-free approach to be able to send devices out to users. And when they identify as who they are, so they turn it on, identify, they then get the applications and settings that matter to them. So to have another look at what this looks like with applications, let's check this out inside of Endpoint Manager. Okay, so we're back in our Endpoint Manager tenant here. Let's now go and have a look in the applications. So similar to before, we can have a look by platform and see the various applications and things that this particular tenant has demonstrated and tested out. So to show you how easy it is to upload a new one, I'm going to hit Add here. I'm going to go through and select the type of being a line of business application. And then I'm going to hit select to actually upload a file that I have on my computer. For the purposes here of the illustration, I'm going to select an installer from Microsoft Edge. All right, so I hit OK. It reads that MSI, gets some basic information. You know, it's Microsoft Edge here, and we can see that I get a few options to fill in to, I guess, enrich the app catalog, which you'll see a little bit later, but it's a way to be able to demonstrate to people what these different applications are, if they're self-serving that application, for example. So as we go through, I'll type in Microsoft here for now. And as I mentioned a second ago, we can choose whether or not that's featured in the company portal. Okay, so we hit next here, and we can see that we have a few options for assigning the application. Now, what this basically means is required, whether that auto installs, for example, in an autopilot process, or after device has already been deployed, whether that installs silently in the background, or we can choose it for it to be available, which is a self-serving process. So having that inside of the company portal application, and then installing it that way as a user, going into the app, clicking and installing. For my purposes, I'm going to put it in the auto install in the required section. Again, we select, as we did with the configuration profile, a group, and then we can continue. All right, we've got our basic settings here. We can see who it's required for, and we'll hit create. Now this app is ready to deploy. As devices check in, it'll push out, and we'll see that success here in the console. Okay, let's start with a story. All right, as we can see here, we have this user who's a sales team member who gets their Surface device. So as they acquire this device, and Anna here, she might have been at home, for example, like we said a moment ago, and that was sent straight to her home as she was onboarding with her new organization. Because it was pre-allocated, pre-configured against Intune and Autopilot, she simply turns it on, identifies as who she is, and she gets access to the configuration of that device as it's intended. Now, we all know that devices can sometimes outlive the people that they're assigned to in an organization. And so it's really important to understand what happens when a device changes hands. We have in the life cycle of a Surface with Autopilot that a device can be reset straight from the cloud. Literally the push of a button, user details are reset, and a new user, for example, Raul here, can sign in, and he might have an absolutely different job role. So Anna was sales, Raul is now in IT, and he can sign into that same device after a reset and have confidence that the bits that he needs will be provided as part of his sign-in. At the end of its life, whether with Raul or if reset a few more times for a few more users, it can be off-boarded and deprovisioned and decommissioned, again, from the cloud and physically sent for physical disposal to an organization such as CompNow. So if we look at the big picture here, we have this story where a configuration can be done in the cloud with Intune, with Azure AD, ahead of a device even being turned on. That device can be associated to your Microsoft Azure tenant and have all the settings preset and ready to go so that as soon as that person identifies as who they are, they get what they need. At the end of its physical life cycle, as many times as it needs to be reset in the midst of that, it can then be disposed of and carry on for example, residual value or whatever physical or financing agreement you have over that device. So to have a look, here's an example of what that user-driven user identification process is. We see that we chose kind of language and region and keyboard details to make sure that the communication is correct for the person in front of it. We choose a network so that we can actually phone home to Microsoft and understand if the device needs to go through this autopilot process or not. And then what we see here is as it connects and makes that communication, it gets identified to be with your organization. So they can sign in with their credentials. And as they do that, they get that communication again from the Intune portal as to whether or not they should have some device level or user level settings for the different profiles that we demonstrated before, or applications that we showed as well. As they go through and usually authenticate once or twice, depending on the flow of what's configured, we get to the state that they now get into their desktop. They can auto sign into something such as OneDrive. And because they have done so, they get access to all the files and all the settings that they need to be productive straight away. So it's a really simple and realistic use case where you're going to have someone grab a brand new device, say their device went for a swim, they can have a brand new device, go through this process and see exactly what you see here. Files, all of the things they were just working on moments ago are ready to go again on a new device. That's pretty powerful. Okay, so outside of the user-driven mode, we also have some more what I like to call appliance mode, things like a kiosk mode or digital signage. The ability to make sure that a device is maybe not used by a person, but used for a use case, agnostic of a certain person. So we have now this ability to do self-deploying mode for kiosk, digital signage, shared, etc. An augmentation of a user-driven mode is something called pre-provisioning. So with autopilot and pre-provisioning, what we can do is kind of blend that old and new world, right? So some of the benefits, for example, of that traditional deployment is, maybe someone's got a slow internet connection where they're going to be, and that's going to take a little bit longer to download the key apps and settings that we want them to have before they get started. What we can do as IT, or as value-added providers such as CompNow, is we can take the device, as long as it's been allocated correctly inside of your Azure tenant, and we can run the pre-provisioning process. You hit the Windows key 5 times, it boots up, it knows, again, similar to what you saw before, and it's able to deploy all of the device-based settings to that before the user signs in and does that final piece of the puzzle. So it can really speed up, again, times where we have big amounts of data and settings that need to go down onto the device ahead of time, or in areas of slow internet connection, etc. So in this particular example, that's been pre-provisioned. That then means Anna is going to be much quicker when she signs in to her device. So an example of what that looks like, very similar to what we saw before. We get the identification of language. Now we actually go through and choose the pre-provision process straight away. And as we do that, we get this screen that shows that, hey, this is the organization it's associated with, if it's pre-associated with a user. And if that all checks out, go ahead and continue and run the process. So that allows your team or our teams to run up those devices at scale on benches and just take away maybe some waiting time that's undesirable. Also means we can pre-check devices if it's really critical for that device to be working from the split second it touched the user's hands. As you can see here, we get this green screen to say everything's okay. And if there are failures, you will see a red screen to indicate that more work needs to be done. So what we see is a story of better together. Surface and Windows Autopilot working together really is a powerful thing. Things like the DFCI management and other kind of Surface and Autopilot built tools are really making it hassle-free for your process of onboarding and deploying devices at scale. So you may ask, Aaron, what do I need to get started? Well, with all good things, there's some money involved, right? There's licensing. So really simply put, if you want to get access to these powerful tools, there's two key components that you need. One is Azure AD, and so with a basic access to Azure, you'll find that you have some free tier or basic tier of Azure, but there is something called Azure AD P1 license SKU. As long as you have that, and it's included in many things, which we'll talk about in a moment, that one piece paired with an MDM, such as Intune, is all that you need. Now, inside of a Microsoft environment, that's going to be a license for Intune and a license for Azure AD. And these two things are very much included in a lot of the common, I guess, packages of subscriptions that you have, such as the Enterprise and Mobility and Security SKUs, or the 365, Microsoft 365 E SKUs or A SKUs, for example, E3, E5, etc. So if you have a look at what you have inside of your Microsoft licensing in, say, your Azure tenant, have a look for those key things. And that means you'll have access to those two fundamental pieces of Azure Active Directory and, say, Intune or another MDM provider. One of the other Surface and Autopilot, or Surface and Intune bedded together stories, is around the Microsoft Surface Management Portal. So what we have here is a dedicated portal for Surface devices and get some extra benefits than your other Windows vendors. Inside of this particular portal, you get access to an overview of your Surface devices, the warranty status and the support status of those as well. What we'll see is that if you have all of your devices here, you can get that top level view from an asset and inventory perspective, not just from a configuration management perspective. You also get to see things like warranty status, understanding what's left from a repair eligibility and other elements. If you lodge support cases with Microsoft against that Surface device, you can see that as well. All right, so what do we need to get started? You need a Surface device, and you need it enrolled and managed in Intune. With those two things, you'll get access to the Surface Management Portal and start having this visibility that we just talked about. Thanks for listening around the modern deployment and management with Surface. Back to you, Trevor.
Thanks, Aaron. Now that you've seen the power of managing Surface devices, let's go over how to get them into your organization. The device as a service model is fully customizable so that you can get exactly what you need from it. You start by choosing your Surface device, then whatever software you may need for it if required. Add any services that CompNow provides, such as help desk, deployments, or installation. And finally, choose the terms, which can be anywhere from 6 to 60-month contract depending on your needs. CompNow has thousands of devices out there under the Device as a Service program. We can configure and tailor it for each organisation. So if you have any further questions about this, get in contact with us. At CompNow, we are very aware of the environmental impacts of technology, and to combat this, we have made a solution available to our clients. Once your devices reach end of life, we are able to recycle or repurpose them to ensure that the minimum amount is put into landfill. Sustain IT securely wipe devices and in some cases can reimburse the organisation for them. Some of these names you may recognise and others are some schools we have worked with. We have some testimonials and case studies to share with you. We'll post the Cricket Australia one in the chat for you to take a look at. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. If you need any help with what we've discussed today, get in touch with us about a modern deployment review by contacting us at info@compnow.com.au. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate your time. Have a great day and see you next time.